everyone. Welcome to my show, Career Startup Podcast, a podcast to spotlight world class Asian entrepreneurs, leaders, and C suite executives who provide their personal insights to inspire you from their journey. This is your host, Priyanka Komala, tuning in. And today I have with me a very special guest. But before I reveal who that special guest is going to be, do subscribe to our channel. We are on YouTube, we are on LinkedIn. Follow me, Priyanka Komla, or our Career Startup podcast page, or follow us on Twitter at Pod Startup to stay tuned to all our upcoming episodes. All right, without further ado, I have with me Shilpi Gupta, who's joining us from Seattle. Hi, Shilpi. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
So Shilpi Gupta is the CEO of Ediziven, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about what Ediziven is all about and some interesting facts behind it. It's a game-changing platform to hire reliable restaurant staff very quickly. She's a self-proclaimed startup addict and a tech veteran from Amazon. She spent almost a decade at Amazon prior to her foray into the food world. And in 2018, she founded Kukri, which is a food truck that was lauded in various news outlets such as the Seattle Times, King 5. Shilpi quickly recognized that hiring was a challenge in the industry, which faces almost like 75% of attrition rate. And that's how Ediziven was born. Pretty interesting insights about your career journey there, Shilpi.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for the kind words and giving me a great intro.
Awesome. So, Shilpi, you've traversed across the world, be it US, Lucknow in India, Japan, Netherlands. How does life feel being a globetrotter at such a young age? And tell us a little bit about your fond memories with food and Lucknow.
Okay. I did travel, fair enough. And quite a bit of it was in my early days. I was actually born here and also went to Japan, lived there for a couple of years, then actually moved to Nagaland, northeastern part, finally settled in Lucknow. And traveling is great. You get to see a lot of different cultures. You probably get your taste buds excited by all the foods around. And if you haven't been to Lucknow, food in Lucknow is my biggest childhood memory. It's be it like if you like kulfis, the kulfis of Lucknow are super popular. It's called Faluda kulfis. Or if you're a meat eater, you got to try the kebabs there. Like it's just fun. Forget the monuments. Yes, great. They are like amazing. But food, you just cannot miss out on that.
That's amazing. And I love faludas.
Who doesn't like it, man? Like it's faludas. You got to like it.
Thank you for that, Shilpi. So looks like your love for food started at a very young age.
Mm-hmm. That is true. If you speak to like people who know me, if they have to tell something about me, pretty much everybody knows that I'm a foodaholic at heart. I don't think that was a question mark in anybody's head.
That's a nice segue to the rest of the episodes. Thanks for sharing those fond memories of your childhood. And we have some of our listeners tuning in, and I wanted to acknowledge them. We have Rubinia Bodge, who's from Denton, Texas. She's a PhD student in computer science. She's also looking for summer internship. So what better way than be a listener on this podcast episode?
Hi, Rubina.
So she says, hello, Shilpi. Hello, Rubinia. And thanks for joining us. All right, Shilpi. So let's talk about you being part of Amazon for almost a decade and being part of the team that launched Prime Video in 200 countries back in 2016. The best part about you, Shilpi, is you left the tech sector to get into the restaurant business. So as a tech veteran, what was the turning point in your life where you felt you could leave a high-paying job and enter into the volatile world of startups?
Mm-hmm. Okay, great question. So just to give a little bit of background, so entrepreneurship in general, like trying to do something new, something fresh, that thing has been in me pretty much always. But you don't like, at least for me, jumping in right away was really hard. I don't even know what that meant. Glad I didn't jump in way early in my career. But Amazon was a great place when I joined, and I joined Amazon in 2007. At that point of time, Amazon was a good company, but wasn't as well known. It was still a fairly new venture, and the kind of challenges that I got to learn in that space, it's Amazon, if you hear, it's always been termed as a startup world. And it's true. It's very, very true. Like every business line of Amazon kind of operates as its own little startup. So video will be its own startup, music will be another startup, whatever. And I grew a lot. I was an engineer, I was a senior engineer, I became a manager. We launched one of the landmark projects, which I did before leaving, was launching Prime Video in 200 countries, and we actually had a very special launch for India, which was very close to me. Like, okay, we're getting into India for the first time. But having said that, when we were doing all of this thing, I have this very standard phenomena of every year, at the end of the year, you should kind of ask yourself, are you looking forward to next year? And are you looking forward to learning something new in the next year? And if your answer is anything other than hell yes, that is your time to rethink that are you in the right place. And for me that was 2016. I have moved pretty fast in my career, did well, but I was really not looking forward to next year of another similar size project. My management change was changing. I got married, so I knew I had financial stability as well. And that was very clear in my head. I'm like, you can always stop yourself on high paying salary saying that, hey, how am I going to ditch that? But with that mindset, you're probably not going to try any time at any moment. So you have to keep that aside, but you have to ask yourself, are you learning something? If you're not learning next year and you were always interested in entrepreneurship, that is your time. You got to get into it. So that was my pivotal point.
That's amazing. And what career advice would you have for people? Like one thing that could really help them pivot. You've are a classic example of a person with growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody who's still starting and juggling between that fixed mindset and that growth mindset, what advice would you have to jump ship?
So there are two kinds of things that I'll tell, and one I wish I also knew a little early on. But when you are in any ways, whether it's your like day one in your job or like 5 years down the line, at any point of thing, don't think about the exact work that you are doing. Think about a bigger picture. Like if you are as an engineer working in say video, your goal is to make the overall video great for the customer, not your code, not your end product. So having that mindset of like looking for your end customer, irrespective of what role you are in, makes you push harder for doing the right thing for the customer. So that's the thing that I'll say, like it doesn't matter whether what part of your career you are in. The second thing that I'm going to say is like if you are just starting your career, try and get a mentor early on in your life. And the mentor doesn't need to be somebody who is like your peer, but somebody who is honest to you, who's going to give you feedback for things when you do well, going to push hard, and also be very critical of things that you don't do right. You got to have that voice, somebody we can trust and go with all kind of questions and see that are you moving in the right direction. And I mean, I had that, but I had a little later in my life. I wish I had a little earlier and sooner.
That's great advice to a lot of us because having that mentorship is very crucial as part of your career journey. So thank
True. Totally.
for creating that. Awesome, thank you. So tell us about your first startup, Cookery. It's a concept of food on wheels, and it toots itself as providing healthy food to Seattle audiences. Tell us about that concept and what is the feedback you got from these people?
Okay, sounds good. So I mean, since the 10 years we have been talking, we probably would have heard the word food so many times that you know that I'm crazy about food. Okay, so when I was leaving Amazon, a very standard way for me to get into entrepreneurship would have been start a tech business, but that would have been like that's what everybody expects out of me, and I'm a person who like okay, I need to challenge myself more. Food is an industry which was always exciting to me. Now, while working at Amazon, I always felt that there wasn't that healthy food which tasted good as well. Like you get those salads and they're boring. I mean, yes, it's very healthy, but at the end of the day, it's cold salad and it's boring. And I was putting up a challenge that can you actually create great flavors, which is healthy and very tasty as well. And that was a mindset by which we thought of cookery as a concept. It was and to test out, you don't want to go into a restaurant business right away. So to test out, it was we created a food truck. The interesting thing was to make sure that the flavors were great. We got a chef from New York, a Michelin star chef, who beat Bobby Flay, who was a chop champion, like, and she was from an Indian origin, to so that we could pull some of the Indian flavors yet make it very global. So we tested that, and it was like grain bowls, like bowls of quinoas with vegetables, meats, lots of sauces. And the surprising thing is, of course, the global population really liked it. It was healthy, it was flavorful. The Indian population, who generally are very pro towards strong Indian flavors, also appreciated that there was a sense of the spice and the flavors in it, but it wasn't overwhelming. It was still a healthy meal, and I think that was like a feedback that we weren't thinking that we would get it. We would be that appreciated by the Indian community as well. So that was a pro, and I mean, pretty much all media channels like strongly spoke about us. So yeah, it was a great win.
That's awesome. And when you look back, right, it connects the dots in a very seamless way. Your love for food starting in Lucknow to
Hmm.
transitioning into the startup world as, a food entrepreneur. I
Hmm.
think it's just very impressive that you figured out what your unique skills were.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It all ties back to food.
And who doesn't love food?
I
It's
know, I
a
know.
great way to spend some, nice memories with people around food.
Hmm. Yeah.
So tell us about the concept of Edisiven.
Hmm.
Edisiven focuses on making the hiring process more efficient and more easier to handle. And I believe your work as part of the food on wheel concept must have really opened your eyes on some of the challenges behind hiring in general. So tell us more about
Exactly.
it.
So when we did cookery, just to give you a little bit of insight, just to hire a cook, I had to rehire that cook position 7 times. And in 1 year, in just 1 year, I rehired 7 times, and that's when I questioned myself, what is wrong in the industry? Like, why am I not able to hire the right kind of people who are going to stick around? And that's when I like started poking my nose around in like other people's businesses and asking them the same question. And I realized the problem was very, very widespread. Like pretty much everybody struggled with hiring. Coming from a tech background, knowing that there's a big gap in this industry, it felt like the obvious route to move to, because I am a tech person also. So merging my tech and food became like the natural choice to go into. And when I dig deeper further into this industry, I realized the attrition rate was like as bad as like 70 to 75%. Like basically three-fourths of your staff will leave by the end of the year. And that got me very curious. I'm like, what is happening? So that's why we made the pivot. And of course, there's a lot of learnings that are happening right now, but we're kind of like focused on the three key things right now. First being, there was a platform missing. Like there weren't as many platforms focusing on the hospitality and restaurant industry needs specifically, and the needs are different. It's a lower paying job, it's a very manual job, it's a high labor job. So the kind of people who apply for white collar jobs are not the same kind of people. So you got to understand what their mindset is. So a platform was missing to understand that, so we worked on that. The other two part of this whole problem statement is like, you got to realize that both the job seekers and the restaurateurs are mostly on foot. They're not checking your emails. They are not online. They barely have the time to look at their phone to figure out, hey, should I respond to this particular to a seeker or not? So we are trying to reinvent on that end. Is like, for the job seeker, try and reach them in the most convenient channel, like maybe a chat based or a call or like a message based platform where we can like push information to them rather than they trying to constantly come. And from the restaurateur side, even if they want to hire, do we really think that they have the time to actually skim through 60 resumes and like find out the one right candidate who's going to stick around? Like they don't have the time either. So filling the gap on their end is like, how do you reduce from actually posting a job to finally getting a worthy candidate in least amount of time? So those are the two areas that we're working on. But lastly, I would say that we don't want to go into a very preconceived notion of this is what the customer wants, and in a very Amazonian style, it's like listen to your customers, see what they're doing, and constantly iterate. Is the phenomena we're adopting right now.
I love the way where you're bringing in the values and the leadership traits that you've garnered as part of the Amazon spirit into your
Mhm.
business. So, what is a challenge for you personally running Edisiven?
Okay. Challenges are full, but the one that constantly pops in my head is it's very hard to get attention from your restaurant or community. And just to state a simple example, pretty much every restaurant have window space and door space, right? Like there's real estate where you can ask them to like put a sign saying that, hey, I'm hiring with XYZ company. So we built like beautiful posters which were like super attractive. So whenever you're hiring, instead of a boring printed out now hiring sign, use this nice funny conventional sign, like more fun sign, probably gonna attract more people. And I would have spoken to like many restaurateurs. A fair amount of them would keep the posters, they like it, but only a handful would like actually put it up. So to get that integration into the restaurant community has been a big challenge. And I'm not a marketing person. I'm a tech person. I'm a product person. And it's for me, it's like going outside the bounds of constantly trying to find a connection and enter into their mind space is really challenging. But yeah, I mean, if you don't fail enough, you're probably not trying. So yeah, there's constant tries happening.
That's such a brave and bold move, Shilpi, because as somebody who has been focused solely on the tech and the product roadmap for such a
Mhm.
long time, to transition more into the business and the communication aspects of really
Yeah.
being in line with your front root people who use your product, I think
Mhm.
that's a huge transformation. And I'm so glad you are acing it in your own way.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that point, like the one thing that I've learned out of both my startups thing is like product is great, but you got to get out in front of your customers like as early as possible to try and see what they're gonna use. Like their feedback is what should drive what you're building next.
So tell us more about interacting with your end customers. How does it feel being an Asian American and as a woman of color trying to get the business?
So, interesting question. So, one thing I would say is that glad to all the awareness that's coming along, that I would say that people are a lot more receptive now to hearing new opinions, new side. I would say that I'm fairly blessed to have not seen any negatives, being a woman, being a not. In fact, women specifically have been supported by other women businesses a lot, and that have given a lot more leeway into getting the connections with the industry. So I would say that our overall movement of supporting women in general have been helping in the entrepreneur world, but there's a lot to be done still. Like it's not there yet, but I would say it's not hurtful, at least not hurting right now.
That's great to hear. And Preeti Suri, who was one of our past
Mhm.
guests on Career Starter podcast, she was the one who connected me with Shilpi and said like she should be a wonderful person to be on the show. And I admire people like Preeti and Shilpi. Preeti is disrupting the travel industry as an Asian American woman, changing the landscape of how travel industry works. And I'm so glad you're doing it for the food industry, Shilpi.
Thank you, thank you. I mean, it's fun, it's a roller coaster, but it's totally worth it.
That's amazing. So tell us about the name Edison. Is there a story behind it that we should know?
Okay, so most people probably don't know there's this whole thing of restaurant lingos, and there's like how they speak to each other. One of the most popular restaurant lingo is called 86. Okay, what it means is 86 is you 86 something when it's spoiled, it's bad, or you're out of it. So, for example, if you're on the menu and if you have say like Caesar salad, and if you have run out of Caesar salad, a chef will tell the server to 86 Caesar salad. So basically, take it out. So 87, it's basically a different way of saying 87. It's my way of saying it's a new beginning, a new start. You have 86 to your last life or your last bad experience, and you're entering into a new way of finding a new experience.
That's something we need in our lives too.
I know, I know. I mean, like, I was truly inspired that okay, it's such a restaurant industry. This term 86 is like extremely popular. Like, pretty much everybody would know it. So for me to like use that was fun to me as well. I was like, okay, you're not 86ing is you're 87ing into the new phase.
That's impressive. So when you look back at your personal career, is there anything that you would 86 yourself as part of the career journey?
Thankfully, no, actually. Like I think what you are today is based on how you've experienced your career. And if you start changing too many things in that, you are not you are what you are today. So I would say nothing that came across. The only part that I was saying, like there are certain times that I felt like I could have moved faster, like unnecessarily stuck in a role where my growth has stagnated. Like the whole idea of growth mindset, like you should be constantly asking, am I growing? And I think there were times when I felt like before Prime Video, I was in payments of Amazon, and I felt like okay, I just stayed there for a lot longer than I should. And that's something that I would always tell people, like question yourself every year, like are you learning? If you're not learning, move, like change whatever, change the scenario. So that's what I would say.
That's awesome. So what's next for Edison?
The big one next is we are been trying to work with our restaurant partners into our premium product, where we are trying to become like their sourcer and the recruiting agent, where we do a lot of stuff, of course, a lot of automated stuff, but then still saving time. And the goal is to like capture about like 100 plus restaurant partners on this premium program and go nationwide. So that's two on the chargers. We're currently operational in Seattle and Los Angeles area, but we plan to be nationwide over the next year.
Hey, hope you scale to the rest of the US as well, because food industry needs to come back to where it was prior to COVID. So
Yeah, and since you said that, the interesting part is like, so that is one part that I was not at all doubtful about. Is like food and that, like food, like you will eat. Like there is no way that you will stop eating. You may defer or like probably put it back for some months because of course we all want to be healthy and like make sure that we are in the safe environment. But as the industry is bouncing back, the challenges will further keep on coming back. And I'm glad that I'm looking ahead up front to try and see what to do next.
hey, and food industry is a great way to boost our US economy. So
Mhm.
I'm glad you're
Yeah.
speaking one of the most important aspects of keeping afloat the restaurant industry.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm a big supporter of small, medium businesses. I mean, they are a big part of economy. So yeah, I mean, I look forward to for the whole industry to bounce back.
That's awesome. So we have a question from a couple of our listeners who've tuned in. I'm going to take the first question from Rubinia. She would like to know, how do you build resilience for all the challenges that you face as a woman in tech and in general acing life? And this is also a question from Vidhi Datta as part of our podcast. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit more.
So I'm going to divide that question in two parts. There's a question about resilience and there's a question about challenges you face as a woman in tech. Okay. So let me tackle the question about women in tech. And the part that I will say is like, we have to be honest that even today, the percentage of women in tech is like 1 in 10. Like if you go to any kind of a meeting, there are times that I'm the only person in that tech, in the room. I would strongly say is like, just because you are 1 in 10, do not be afraid to speak your mind. Like that is one thing and that's where the mentorship comes in. So my mentor was a male boss. He was super like kind of a person who's like pushing you to excellence. And glad I had a mentor like that because he will point me out after the meeting saying that, hey, why the hell did you not speak in that particular stuff? So getting that backing to be like be the voice in the room is something you got to do from your day one of your career. You make a backseat and people will forget that you exist in that room, even though you are the most learned person in that room for that particular topic. So I would say that like never back down on speaking your mind, saying the right things just because you're 1 in 10. If you do that, there'll be two more women who'll have the courage to say that. So that's something that I try to tell even to my juniors who always ask me the question that how like I would totally be okay being called bossy and too much on the head, but rather be heard than being ignored for not speaking up. So do that as a women in tech. About resilience part, the when you are onto something, you have a goal in mind, right? Like this is what I wanted to achieve. This is what I wanted to do. And I'll take an example from the food truck world because that I think is very connects very well. So when I started the food business, my goal was to create healthy, flavorful food and serve the Seattle audience. That is what I was looking for, and of course, figure out how to scale and all of that. There were times my cooks did not show up. There were times my dishwasher did not show up. So you would think that it's off, right? You were in a well-paying job, and here you are in the kitchen washing the dishes of like 100 people who ate with you, and like getting all that thing out, and you would feel like kind of like uh, saddened that this is not what you signed up for. But in that moment, if you told yourself that, hey, my end goal is not just trying to get this obstacle, my end goal is seeing if the brand can succeed, this will just feel like a stepping stone. And that's when you tell yourself that it's okay because these kinds of hardship are about to come. Something that I also tell is like startups are a marathon. You will fail. You're gonna fail probably like X number of times. And there's a Jeff B's famous quote like, if you haven't failed enough, you probably haven't tried.
Right, you're
And
not kidding.
and I live by it. Like you will fail. So just accept it and look at your end picture and don't give up. Is what I would say.
Thank you for that wonderful advice. And thank you, Rubinia, for that thoughtful question. It makes me wonder, Shilpi, how do you handle low moments in your life? Like, what do you say to you when you're the only woman in the room, when you have to pep up yourself to be the best version to represent your brand?
So this will be a funny answer, okay? It happens a lot of times that you are probably feeling low. And I have a very weird way of tackling with it. So of course you should do whatever makes you happy, like anything therapeutic. That's great. You should do that. The part what I tell to give myself confidence is like in your 10 years, 15 years of your career, you must have had some moments which were really great, right? You must have had like an applause moment where your manager gave you highlighted reviews, which was like all flowery. For example, when Kukri was applauded in a lot of media channels, there was a lot of articles and videos about it. The day I'm feeling low, I'm going to pull every damn thing from my last 10 years where I was highlighted for great works, read them again, and that's when I get the energy. Okay, fine. Screw the world. I'll do what I can do the best and I'll perform the best in it. So it's you need those positive words about yourself, and there's nobody else to give you. So you find a way to drive it back from whatever you've done in your last X number of years of working.
That's awesome. And that's a great way to build resilience as well. It's understanding your high moments in your life and just revisiting those. So it
Yeah.
gets you out of the rut, especially being a startup entrepreneur.
I know. I mean, it can be depressing. It can get totally depressing, and you would not know how many times I would have watched some of my video captures from my cookie days when there are low moments for 87. Because I mean, who is giving you a morale boost? Okay, fine, take it from your own self, from your own last doings. So it works out.
You're the best person who can truth about yourself. So why not, just
Exactly,
you.
exactly.
And it's a great philosophical way of looking into ourselves, looking inwards to get
Mhm.
that kind of motivation too.
And I'm sure you can do it. It's not a question about can you. You're just looking for a little bit of pep talk, but there's nobody to give you a pep talk. So get it for yourself.
That's impressive. Thank you so much for that. All right, so we have a fun rapid fire round for you, Shilpi. Are you ready for it?
Sure, totally.
So you tell me the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the following. We'll
Mhm.
start with role model.
Indra Nui.
Hey, she's my role model too. So
I know she's amazing.
every Indian role model is Indra Nooyi, perhaps.
She has to be, man. She just like makes women shine in such a great light. Yeah,
Very true. What does happiness mean to you?
food, food. It has to be food.
And is there a special food favorite?
Pani puri. I'm a big pani puri fan.
It's like the chart food is always
Ah, yeah,
first on your list, right?
totally.
What is one fun thing about Shilpi that you haven't shared with anybody else and it's exclusive to our Career Startup podcast listeners?
I love playing pranks. Watch out.
That's very nice to know. It shows the humorous, fun side of you.
Exactly. Yeah, like I used to be doing a lot more during college time. Now I'm like picky, like don't scare people. But I love playing pranks.
That's awesome. What is your native language and one word to describe yourself in it?
Native language Hindi. One word, optimist.
Is there a Hindi equivalent that you can share?
For optimist, man, this is when the living in US makes your. I would say, let me go for power then, because that's another thing I feel about. I would say Shaktishali is definitely. My name by itself means artistic, so Kalakar.
Right.
But I think I'm a less of a Kalakar and more of an optimist. So I'll go with Shaktishali, powerful.
That's awesome. Thank you. Such a wonderful opportunity to feature you on Career Startup podcast. So thank you so much for that, Shilpi. Tell us your experience being on the show and why should one consider listening to this going forward as well?
I mean, experience-wise, I think it was wonderful. You've been a great host. It was fun to like connect with somebody, as you said, like same age group, similar challenges, women entrepreneur. So that's great. As for why to listen, there are still very few success stories for people who have moved outside of India and how they're growing, and to get that morale boost and get that information how things work out. I would totally say people who like watch up for career up. Just sometimes you just learn a lot from other people's stories and know what to do right or not to do it. So totally, and when you have the similar background, it just helps even more.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Shilpi. And my brand name, Career Startup, resonates perfectly with my guest for today, Shilpi, given she's in the food industry.
Actually, that's true. I mean, curry up, yeah, totally. All about food and curries, man.
I know. Thank you so much, Shilpi. So I just wanted to share some comments from our listeners. Rubinia wants to say, I admire that you followed your dreams and passion. That's remarkable. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Rubinia. And do you have anything to say to Rubinia, given she's looking for internships? What advice would you have for her?
We should totally connect outside. Ping me on LinkedIn, and we're always looking for great people to work. And whatever you plan to do in your life, tell yourself you can do it. Half the battle is all there.
There you go, Rubinia. You have your answer right from the startup leader in the food industry and the tech world. So thank you so much, Shilpi. Such a pleasure having you on the show, and we wish you all the very best with Edisiven. And you've shared some amazing takeaways, which I wanted to share with my listeners again. So the top three takeaways with Shilpi Gupta, the CEO of Edisiven, on a Career Startup podcast. One, keep always asking, am I learning? Am I growing? That's a nice way for you to get into the growth mindset. And two, have mentors who'll push you to get to the next level. That's always important. And the most fabulous takeaway for me is 86 things in your life that you want to move away from. I think that's just like a
Yeah.
perfect reminder for us to always keep thinking about what's next and how do you restart on a lot of fresh beginnings. So thank you so much on that. And thank you so much, Rubinia, for joining us as well. And to our listeners, until another episode with another interesting guest, this is your host, Priyanka Komala, signing off from Career Startup Podcast, a podcast to spotlight world-class Asian entrepreneurs, leaders, and C-suite executives who can provide insights from their personal journey to inspire you. And this is your host, Priyanka Komala, signing off. Do subscribe to us by following us on LinkedIn, Priyanka Komala, or our Career Startup Podcast page, so you get your live LinkedIn notifications. We're also on YouTube, Twitter at Pod Startup, and your favorite podcast streaming platform. So we'll get to see you tomorrow on our episode, and we're really excited to spotlight another interesting guest. Until then, have a wonderful rest of the day.